What's up, guys? Artem MMA Analysis here. Going to be talking about LFA 131, Argueta versus Silva. And just a little clarification, there are no odds released yet. Not that the odds do influence my picks, but if I do pick only favourites, I do apologise for that. I'm not really doing it on purpose, but to be fair, I will admit that most of the guys that I've picked, the Tapology community does pretty much agree with me. All but a couple of fights, really. So if we get straight into it, I'm going to be talking about the first pro fight. I'm not going to be breaking down the amateur fights because it's just way too hard to find information on them. But if you look at this fight here, Christy Tyquiengco versus Leslie Hernandez. Christy has not fought for about 5 years. She won by submission about 5 years ago and hasn't fought since then. Leslie Hernandez, on the other hand, is 3-0 as an amateur, making her pro debut. She does have 2 wins over debuting girls and a win over a 1-0 girl. I feel like I'm just going to be picking Leslie Hernandez for the one reason of that she's also fighting out of MMA Lab as well, which is a very good gym. And also the fact that Christy Tyquiengco is hasn't fought for about 5 years, you know, and even then she wasn't the most active fighter in the world. So yeah, I think that Hernandez is probably taken a little bit more seriously than Tyquiengco. Maybe she just thought that it'd be quite fun to get in there and do an MMA fight on LFA on a pretty big card. But Hernandez, I feel like, is potentially taken a little bit more seriously. She's fighting a little bit more often as well. I'm gonna pick her to win this fight here. Klein versus Tristan Overvig. This is a fight that I did kind of look into a little bit, and I was kind of struggling with who I think is gonna win. But I'm going to eventually side with Tristan Overvig. He had a pretty good amateur career, including a pretty good win over Thomas Herrera, where ground and pound, who was 12-4 at the time in the amateur scene. Now he's moved on to pro. He beat a guy by KO 1-1. He beat a guy that was KO who was 2-3. And now he's going to be facing another 2-0 guy in Nick Klein. And I think that he's going to win by KO as well. Nick Klein does have one loss in his record, and that is by KO on the amateur scene, to Niall Bartley, who's a pretty good prospect right now. I think he's like 6-0 as a pro, and I feel like he probably would have been signed to the UFC if this FAC bout on FAC looking for a fight took place, but unfortunately it didn't. So maybe Niall Bartley could be on Dana White's Contender Series or something like that. Gary Konkol versus David Evans. Now, I've been talking to Gary Konkol and his manager just a little bit. We were meant to do an interview together, but unfortunately, because I'm from New Zealand, it's not going to work out. Unfortunately, my time zone is just way too different to you guys in USA or even in Europe. You know, like, we've got such a crazy time difference. I'm like, I think I was like 17 hours ahead of Gary Konkol, and I work 6 days a week. You know, like, it just wasn't going to work out. Unfortunately, the time zones when I was free would have been like past midnight his time, and I'm sure with about a week to go before his camp, he's probably trying to focus on his fight rather than stay up to like 2 a.m. to do a interview with me. So yeah, anyway, moving on. I'm picking Gary Konkol to win the fight. Actually, I have been looking at his training. I said he's taking this fight very seriously. I believe that he thinks that this is a ticket to some of the big shows, and you know what? With a 4-1 record, with a win over another guy that was 4-1, I don't really see why a couple more wins after this wouldn't put him in the conversation or in the spotlight for other people, for other promotions. You know what I mean? And LFA is a pretty big stepping stone as well. The wins that he's had on his record, he did have a pretty extensive amateur career, but now that he's gone pro, he has on a 3-fight win streak over guys with losing records. But this Johnny Rhodes win, it was a very impressive win. I really actually liked watching it. He's a very good performer. He comes out to the crowd, he yells at the crowd, he kind of jumps around even when he's fighting a little bit. He throws his arms up and talks to the crowd and stuff like that, which is pretty exciting. He's got a great jiu-jitsu game. I believe most of his wins are actually by submission. A couple of wins are by submission. 3 out of 4 of his wins are by submission. And he's fighting David Evans, who was 4-0 at one point until he ran into Gage Young a couple of months ago. In fact, that might actually be the FAC card, FAC 12, the looking for a fight card. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. It was the FAC 12 looking for a fight card, and since then, Gage Young hasn't fought since. But yeah, that was a pretty big opportunity for David Evans. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out for him, so now he's going to be fighting Gary Konkol. I'm picking Gary Konkol to win by submission in this one here, so let's see if he can get it done. Kegan, Gennrich versus Austin Lutchen. I am picking Austin Lutchen for the main reason that Kegan has been very inactive. Yes, he did fight a couple of months ago. Before they took a year and a half off and lost to Evan Alder, who is now in the UFC. And then before that, he took about a year off. Then before that, he took about 2.5 years off. And then before that, he took, like 3 months. So, yeah, so I feel like Kegan at this point, unfortunately, just isn't fighting super often. Maybe he just isn't Maybe there's some like personal financial reasons or something like that. Maybe why he isn't fighting as often as he is. But I'm definitely picking Austin Lutchen to win this fight here. He was 5-0 at one point until he did run into someone under the name of Nate Gentleman, who was 14-5 at the time. Maybe just a little bit too experienced. Maybe just a little bit better than the competition that he faced before that. But even then, he did fight a guy that was 6-4 and beat a couple of experienced guys. I mean, 11-14 ain't that great, but he did beat him. Yeah, I'm just taking Austin Lutchen in this one here. I don't recognize either of the guys' gems, but I think Austin Lutchen should probably get a good return on this one here. It's worth noting, I think that all of his wins have come by submission as well, so I feel like Austin Lutchen by submission is probably a pretty fair prediction. Moving on, Roland Dunlap versus Hamza Salim. I see that Roland Dunlap is wearing an Olympic it's kind of a t-shirt or long sleeve or whatever in this photo, and I tried to find out something about Roland Dunlap, but for the Olympics, like maybe he was on the American Olympic team at some point, American Olympic training team. I didn't look super hard, but I did find his wrestling record, I think in high school or college or something like that. I think he it was something like 159 wins to 9 losses or something ridiculous like that. So we know that Roland Dunlap is coming in with a very good wrestling background. He's also coming in with a pretty good MMA career as well. I think he went undefeated. Actually no, I think he lost one fight when he was an amateur to Jamal Pogues, and even then Jamal Pogues is a pretty good prospect himself, who is 8-3 at the moment. I don't think he's had too much success recently, but I think he's still a prospect. Yeah, he lost to Alex Polizzi, who's in Bellator right now, so it's not even too bad, to be honest. But moving on, that's not what we're talking about. He fought a guy in the regional scene, and then he's got a couple of wins in LFA since. I feel like LFA kind of saw that this guy was fired, and they snatched him up, and yeah. He's got a great wrestling base. Hamza Salim has kind of just been used to build up the records of other guys in Bellator. He was used to build up the record of Grant Neal, and then he was used to build up the record of Christian Edwards a year and a half ago. Now I feel like he's just been used to build up the record of Roland Dunlap. But prior to that, though, he did have a couple of like one good win on his record, I guess. But he just doesn't fight like super often. I don't think he takes it as seriously as these other guys. I feel like Roland Dunlap definitely has the intentions of making the big time. So I feel like I'm going to be picking Roland Dunlap here, just because I think he's taking it a little bit more seriously. Speaking of someone taking this very seriously, I'm picking Jalin Fuller to win this one here. Not that Myktybek Orolbay Uulu won't be. I feel like Myktybek Orolbay Uulu is actually a very, very good fighter, and I feel like he's going to be quite underrated in this matchup as well, because if you look at this guy's record, in fact, in the last 2 fights, he's fought 2 very high level competition. He fought ACA Young Eagles and lost to an 8-0 guy at the time, Khalid Tutuyev, who is still undefeated in 11-0 as a prospect right now. And then he went on to beat Payman Hasiev, who was 8-1 at the time. And since then he has he's won 1, lost 1. But this guy's had a lot of cancelled fights. It seems like a lot of these guys don't want to fight him. Jalin Fuller stepped up. And yeah, we'll see if Jalin Fuller can get the job done. He got a submission in the first round in his last one. He did lose to Bruno Assis, who ended up main eventing in LFA, that is, against someone that's going to be fighting on Dana White's Contender Series. His name has completely slipped my mind, and I'm going to feel really bad for you guys if I don't tell you who it is. Ozzy Diaz. He fought Ozzy Diaz. Ozzy Diaz is going to be on Dana White's Contender Series this year. But anyway, I'm picking Fuller to win, probably inside the distance. I feel like Orolbay Uulu is definitely going to be like very live, very, very live in this one here. Both guys have been fighting pretty often, say more often on the Jalin Fuller side. I do think that Jalin Fuller is taking it seriously enough that he wants to make it to the UFC. He wants to make it Bellator or PFL. He's taking this fight very seriously, I think. He's taking his career quite seriously as well. He's fighting so often, and he's fighting for a bigger promotion in LFA. LFA has always been known as a pretty good stepping stone for the UFC, so we'll see if it works out for him. Tim Hiley versus Darrius Flowers. I'm still kind of split on the pick, but I am going to be going with Darrius Flowers in this one. I think I picked Darrius Flowers to lose, or did I pick him to beat Daniel Gadley? I can't really remember. But anyway, the point is he beat Daniel Gadley only about a week ago, and now he's making a very quick turnaround at 185 again, which is kind of worth noting that he's making a quick turnaround 1 week later, even though he missed weight in his last one there. Tim Hiley, on the other hand, weighed in at 192 in his last fight, which was about a month ago. So both guys making a very quick turnaround on the regional scene. Both guys obviously trying to build up their records a little bit here. I do say stuff about like how these guys want to make it to the UFC, and this is another example. These guys are fighting so often on the regional scene, trying to prove themselves. Darrius Flowers, not the prettiest record in the world, but the wins he has are very good. Hold on. Am I reading this correctly? Did he get a win yesterday? And oh my god, how did I miss this when I was looking? Okay, let me have a look. What's going on? So maybe after this, he's booked to fight someone else. But anyway, he fought Tim Caron. I think a couple of weeks ago. That's not 1 day ago. I was gonna say that can't be 1 day, but a couple of weeks ago. Then he fought Daniel Gadley. Now he's gonna be fighting Tim Hiley, and then he's gonna be fighting Tyrone Page. Like, he's got 2 scheduled bouts. Like, this is what I mean. He's taking this very seriously. He's obviously trying to build up his record quite a bit, make it a little bit prettier. I feel like a win over Tim Hiley would be a good start, make him 11-5, and then he'll beat this guy on the regional scene who was 5-17. Make himself 12-5, you know what I mean? So I feel like, yeah, I'm picking Darrius Flowers to probably win this fight here over Hiley. He's a little bit younger as well. He's probably a lot hungrier than Hiley as well, who is 33 years old. Getting a little bit older than the prospect status, I guess you could say. Now, Dan Argueta. The UFC has the eye on this guy. I'm telling you guys right now. Yeah, the UFC is eyeing up Dan Argueta. They're just waiting for the right time to either sign him or put him on Dana White's Contender Series. I feel like there's a much higher chance that they're going to sign him to Dana White's Contender Series first to just once again build up his record a little bit. Because what is he right now? He's 7-0 right now. He wins this fight. I'm predicting him to win this fight. He's going to be 8-0. He goes into Dana White's Contender Series and 8-0, wins there. He's going to be 9-0 as a signee, as a hot signee as well, by the way. It was a very, very good record. He came into Ultimate Fighter Season 29 with only a 5-0 record. He did lose to Ricky Turcios, who ended up winning the whole thing in this first fight of the first fight of the house, which is a little bit unlucky for him. But since then, he beat Rodney Mandela by armbar in the first round. He ground and pounded a 12-0 Myron Santos, and now he's fighting Diego Silva. I'm picking him to finish Diego Silva in this one here. He did beat Andre Sukumtaf recently on CES MMA, and I think I actually covered that card. I think I talked about that card at some point anyway, but he does have a couple of good wins inside the distance there. He did lose to Jay Perrin. I recognize Jay Perrin for some reason. I don't know why. It's gonna bug me now. But yeah, I just think that Dan Argueta is that good. Dan Argueta is that guy. I believe he's UFC ready. He's proven himself to be UFC ready since coming out of the Tough House. So yeah, I think Dan Argueta wins this one, gets signed to Dana White's Contender Series, or gets signed to the UFC, as a lot of these guys that do main event LFA cards do. I mean, Ozzy Diaz main evented an LFA card the other week, and now he's getting signed to Dana White's Contender Series. Thomas Peterson versus Waldo Cortez Acosta was literally last week, I think, and Waldo Cortez Acosta won that. Now he's getting signed to Dana White's Contender Series, so Dan Argueta is going to be on Dana White's Contender Series, or he's getting signed directly to the UFC. But anyway, Jay Perrin, why do I recognize Jay Perrin? That's right, because he's in the UFC. Oh my god, I'm such an idiot. He took a short notice fight against Mario Batista, and now he's in the UFC. And then he had a fight booked. Yeah, Perrin signed to the UFC, that's right. Anyway, yeah, Jay Perrin's in the UFC. So he's got a loss to a guy that is in the UFC, and now he's won a couple of fights since then. But anyway, like, I got very off topic towards the end of there, but that's my picks for the week.